Alrighty then, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass. Live and Color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. Happy Thursday evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. I'm chilling like a villain as always. Here to talk a little bit of Japanese horror. We've got some people in the heezy already. The Master of Fear is here. What's going on, good brother? Hope all is well with you. Hey, how you doing? AJ Zitro, he was doing the countdown. He was in the lobby before I was even in the graveyard, man. That is a true fan. He was crawling himself out of the goddamn well, just like Sadako, brother. I'm dead. Yes, it is time for the graveyard. Grab your shovels. We start digging at dawn. It's time for the graveyard shift. Dude, of course it is. Just not as much rats in my graveyard shift, hopefully, for my fucking ass. I mean, Brad Dourif can come, but everything else, I don't know. But I'm here tonight, chilling like a villain. I hope everybody's having an awesome work week. It's been a busy work week for me, but personally looking forward to the weekend. As always on here, I can't really wait for Friday, TGI Friday tomorrow. Looking forward to that. My Mets have been on a roll, won 6 in a row, so baseball world's going all well. And I've got a pretty cool, I figured we could start this off a little bit hot, if you will. We've got a little bit of an unboxing. Ooh, what can it be? I got in on a sick deal. That's pretty much what this is. And I'm sorry, Mama Grande, you could blame her for this. She started the unboxing for me because she just wanted to know what I got because she was being nosy that day, I guess. But I got this in the mail a couple days ago, and I figured, why the hell not unbox it live on the graveyard for y'all to take a ghouly gander at. So, I mean, it's not much of an unboxing because the box is already unboxed type of thing. But what do we have here? I'm going to take the little cellophane off this son of a bitch so you guys can see it extra clear. Oh man, this thing is fucking huge, I gotta say. And it is none other than all 156 episodes of Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone on Blu-ray high definition. Yes, this is I'm pretty sure I've said this a million times on my show, but this is my all-time favorite television show, the original Twilight Zone series. And this ran from the late 50s through the mid 60s. This was just one of the most revolutionary television shows at the time. And it's pretty cool to have the entire collection. I believe it was Tuesday the 11th where it was National Twilight Zone Day. And Amazon dropped the price down from like $65 on this all the way down to like 41. And I fucking heard about it, and I could not have hit order any quicker than I did. I ordered that son of a bitch right away. I was super excited to pick this up because I've been watching them, like they're on Netflix, I believe. So I would watch them that way. They've been on Prime a long time, and I know they're not anymore. But I think the one thing too, which is cool about this, is they actually have the entire fourth season. Now, if you're a diehard fan of the Twilight Zone, you know the fourth season is definitely the weakest because that was the season where they tried to do hour-long episodes. And they were like, let's get away from the half-hour format. Let's try to make longer episodes. We'll make fewer, but we'll make longer episodes. And basically the idea completely blew up in their face because there's a couple good season 4 episodes, but it's mostly just a shit show. And that's coming from someone who adores the show. Like it's not like, oh, I was bored by it. It's in black and white. I'm not one of those people. I'm completely a lover of the show, and I will even tell you the fourth season at times is fucking terrible. Like there's one with, oh my gosh, there's one with like they somehow reincarnate fucking Shakespeare. And fucking Burt Reynolds, I believe, is in it. Like a young Burt Reynolds is in it playing. It's fucking weird, man. It's a weird ass episode. But again, there's a couple decent ones of that season. I love the one. There's this one where this guy works in this wax museum and it's all filled with serial killers, and they're closing the place down. He's like, let me take care of the figures in my house. And the wife doesn't want him to do it, but he brings down all the figurines to his basement. He has the air condition on because of course, if he doesn't, they'll melt. And basically they slowly but surely start to all come to life as these actual killers. And that was a scary ass fucking episode that the fourth season nobody ever talks about. I believe it was called The New Exhibit. There's also a really good one with James Whitmore in that season. On Thursday we leave for home, so it's cool. That's actually the first thing I'm going to watch is some of these fourth season episodes because that's definitely the ones I've seen the least. And I don't know, I think it's cool to get the entire collection of Blu-ray high def. There's not an abundance of special features. There's an original pilot with Rod Serling. I've seen that. It's honestly not much. Audio commentaries with cast and crew. I'm assuming that's only going to be on the big episodes. like Nightmare at 20,000 Feet and Time Enough at Last. But it would be cool if they, I don't know, I've never really heard Burgess Meredith talk about The Twilight Zone. He was on like 4 episodes, so I'd love to hear his thoughts. Let's see, radio dramas, isolated music scores. So I don't know. I will definitely give this a look. I mean, there's a lot here. I don't really know. This kind of reminds me. I have The Odd Couple, the complete series of that, and I believe that's also CBS. So that's probably why you get this same presentation here of like disc by disc, like that, and then it's not really in the best. I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a cheap way to send out a box set. Like it doesn't have good artwork really at all. There's no artwork much at all on this son of a bitch, to be honest. Like, there's some on the back, but nothing crazy. This is basically just to say, hey, I own the entire collection, and I'm glad I do. They have the episode glossary on the inside here. So I don't know. This was a cool pickup for 41 bucks. I mean, you can't beat it. I was pretty stoked. And I don't know. I just was like, you know what? I gotta bite the bullet on this. I totally gotta pick this up, and I'm glad I did. I want to always go back into the Twilight Zone and watch some of the episodes, even the bad ones. Sometimes it's just an interesting watch to see what went wrong, because I pretty much have to say that most of these fucking, like, it's so hard to pick a top 10 or a top 15 because there's literally like 50 episodes I'd consider great, and that's saying a lot considering there was only 150. So I don't know. I'm a huge fan of this show. Had to pick it up. I might even throw one in after the graveyard. Maybe, just maybe. But we do have some more people here now. Ty Junebug Films in the house. What's going on, good brother? Hope all is well with you tonight. Happy Thursday. Twilight's so sweet. Absolutely. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I adore it. And I'm really, really happy to finally own the series, because it's funny because like I've seen them all a million times, on whether it be the 4th of July marathons or the New Year's Eve marathons. That's when they usually, like, Sci-Fi and the movie channels, they'll run Twilight Zone marathons. But I think it's cool to just own it, and now I could say, hey, if I want to go back and watch a specific one, boom, HD high def. And I do believe these look great on Blu-ray, because they actually didn't go the cheap route. They shot these all on film, and they all look fucking sparkling good in HD, considering there's none of these that are in color. I know there's a couple episodes in the second season, I believe 6 episodes, where to cut budget, they did mostly like shot on video. Not exactly shot on video, but like it's not shot on film, and it's clearly, it looks like shit. It looks like somebody wiped their ass with whatever film they used. And I don't know, I always thought that was funny, but they did that to cut budget and to make and produce more episodes for season 3. And I believe it adds a different kind of atmosphere to certain episodes, even though it's cheaper. It somehow worked as a positive. It's amazing. Let's cut costs. That's almost 99 out of 100 times a bad thing, but with this show too, it just somehow managed to be the one time where it wasn't a bad thing. Hand it over. Hello, everybody. Aiden Vavre's in the house. What's going on, my friend? Oh, that's a pretty cool avatar you got going there. Very badass. Dude, yeah, I highly recommend you pick that up. You're not going to get it as cheap as I did, unfortunately, because it's past. I'm assuming the price probably shot right back up after all those got sold, but I'm glad I got my hands on it. Hideo was inspired by Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist when he made Ringu. Yes, we're going to get all into that, because I'm super excited to discuss this. Japanese horror is some of the best horror. Completely agree. And this is probably, to this day, the most popular Japanese horror film, I would dare to say. Like I'm also a huge diehard fan of Ju-on the Grudge and Ju-on the Grudge 2. I really, really enjoy those movies. And I was considering initially doing those instead of doing Ring, but there was actually a couple Ring films that I hadn't seen that I'll be discussing here tonight. So I figured it's always more fun to talk about movies that I haven't seen over and over again, and to give my raw thoughts, as opposed to, oh, well, I've had this settle in for all these years, whatever. But I do have a lot to say on this, but I'm a huge fan of Ju-on the Grudge. Of course, I love the One Missed Call series, of course, started by the legendary Takashi Miike. Dark Water, I think, is a great film. I love Japanese horror from that time. I know a lot of people, they say the phrase J horror. I don't know that phrase. I'm up and down with it. I just like to see Japanese horror. Like it doesn't really need to be abbreviated like autocorrect Twilight Zone. Of course, my avatar is from a little unknown film called Spontaneous Combustion, directed by Tobe Hooper. Yes, I know, you're rocking it. I dig it just looks good as an avatar. I like that blue tint to it. Last Japanese horror film I watched was on King Gore's channel, Hopping Vampires. That's all I need to say. Oh shit, I missed that one. I'm not seeing that. I've never even heard of that, to be honest. But man, that sounds crazy. I know Corey's been doing the like I think on Saturdays, I believe he's been showing like trying to get more exposure to movies that nobody talks about, like films like Spookies. I watched that one night in the chat with Corey. Oh my god, what a fun night! What a fun night that was. Unfortunately, that was on his old channel that YouTube stupidly took down because he had just amazing content, and of course they destroyed a perfect thing. But that is what it is, neither here nor there. We love Corey, and I think that he does that. It's so cool. I almost want to like rip him off and start doing it myself, but at the same time, that's his thing, and I love that. It's just fun. It's a fun way to get people newer exposure to older films and lesser talked about older films. I mean, we all talk about the biggies from the olden days, but we don't always talk about Spookies. And somebody should, because that's a fun ass movie. That's a really, really fun Halloween horror movie that nobody really gives its due. I'm so behind on Japanese horror. Yeah, no, it's funny because I've done a lot of experimenting with Japanese horror. Like I wouldn't say I'm an aficionado on Japanese horror by any means or stretch of the imagination, but I just love the whole culture of Japan. And I've always loved the whole culture of Japan because if you ask me, man, what are some of my favorite things? Horror, that's of course one of them, and that's huge. That's one of the biggest genres of film in Japan. What sports do you like? Oh, my favorite sport's baseball. Baseball is the number one sport in Japan, and it's huge. And they even have their own huge Japanese megastars come over to the States and they play in our game. Like Shohei Ohtani, he's one of the first ever, of course, since back in the Babe Ruth days, a guy that can pitch and hit a 450-foot home run. You don't see that anymore consistently. Sure, a pitcher will run into one every now and again. Sure, a position player will throw a perfect inning every now and again. But this guy does it every 5 days. And then if he's not on the mound, he's also in the lineup batting first. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting culture. And of course, what's bigger in Japan than pro wrestling? I'm a huge pro wrestling guy. Those three things in Japanese culture are huge, as is some of my favorite foods, seafood. I'm a huge squid guy. I'm a huge octopus guy. Love eating sushi. That's a huge thing in Japan. And I think it's fun to kind of explore the genre of horror, my favorite genre of movies, in another country, in another style, in another substance. I think it's so interesting to see what Japanese horror filmmakers can bring to the table. And we're going to talk about that tonight when we talk about Ringu, Spiral, Ringu 2, and Ringu 0. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. Toby Hooper was always good at using neon colors, blue tints in his films. Yeah, Carpenter too. That's one you see a lot. Like you see that blue tint in so many films from around that era. And those two, Carpenter, Hooper, especially Carpenter, I mean, the blue tint in The Thing is just like one of my favorite looks and scopes for film. And I think a lot of that is due to Dean Cundy's cinematography. I just adore Dean Cundy as a cinematographer. I think he was the secret to John Carpenter's success at that time, because as great as John Carpenter is as a director, I think some of his films without Dean Cundy sort of lack something. They don't have that classic Carpenter scope. Like, and I know a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, you're putting over Dean Cundy, but yeah, honestly, yes, because look at every film that he made with Dean Cundy, and like it's apples and oranges to me personally. That's just my humble opinion. The music's always going to be there, the acting's always going to be there, the creativity of John Carpenter is always going to be there. I'm not trying to sell John Carpenter short, but I do think that Dean Cundy was one of the biggest roles in John Carpenter's success over that stretch he had from like 78, I would say, to 88, like a good 10-year run where he just could do no wrong with him as the cinematographer. And I always thought it was weird too that one of the only films of that era that he didn't use was Christine. He didn't use Dean Cundy. That one I forget the cinematographer that he used, but that movie from a scope standpoint, it doesn't take any step down. I would love to know if anybody could look that up for me in the meantime. Who was the cinematographer of Christine? Because it's another movie that just classic Carpenter scope. Plus, a lot of Japanese directors make better Hollywood movies at Hollywood. which is very funny because, of course, we're going to get into this director of Ringu and the director of Ju-on the Grudge both went on to direct Ring movies in Hollywood. Of course, well, Jesus Christ, I'm getting tongue tied here. But of course, Hideo Nakata, he directed The Ring 2, which was the sequel to the Hollywood remake. And then, of course, Ju-on's film director, he went on to direct the Sarah Michelle Gellar Grudge and the Grudge sequel in America. So very interesting that who's better to remake a Japanese horror film than the guy that made the original? Very fucking interesting. And part of me likes that they reached out to them and said, "Hey, we understand this is your baby. Would you want to come over here and do it and make money again? It's going to be the same thing. You're basically copy and pasting. It's an easy paycheck, and you can open your film to an even wider audience and just switch the languages around." I get how some people could say, "Oh, that's bullshit," and I kind of agree in some ways. Like it's pretty much made for the people who don't like subtitles. I mean, let's be honest, and to make money. That's obviously always the ultimate goal. Let's make money. Let's release. Oh, Ringu was the biggest horror movie in the year 1998 in Japan. Let's remake it as The Ring in America, and that movie set the world on fire. But I do think in a lot of ways it's kind of a middle finger to the original film. Like, even though the Funny Games remake is directed by Michael Haneke and is literally pretty much shot for shot the same film, it doesn't carry the weight to me that the 97 film does. And I know that what gets in the way of that is that the original film's not in English. A lot of people, oh, I'd rather watch Naomi Watts, and we're lead up with The Ring. I'd rather watch Naomi Watts, what's it with Naomi Watts in English speaking horror remakes from other countries? I don't know, but I think it's definitely interesting. There are some better than others. Like the Funny Games remake isn't bad. The Ring remake isn't bad. Even the Grudge remake isn't bad. But at the same time, I don't think any of those three carry the style, emotional weight, and ultimately the originality that the original films had. And that's, I know that's kind of an oxymoron, but it's the truth. I mean, when you see something for the first time, there's no seeing it for a second first time. You know what I mean? Like there's no re-seeing that for the first time. There just isn't. And even though some remakes may do aspects better, sure, I've heard people say the tape in The Ring of Gore Verbinski's The Ring is better than the tape they use in Ringu. I disagree, but some people saw that first, and some people may say, hey, that stands out to me a lot more than what I saw second, which even though one came out before the other, it's sometimes what you see first. And with remakes and originals, that can really kind of play the ultimate kind of wild card. I'm behind on my Japanese horror. Yeah, no, and that's why it's fun to do this. That's why I love talking on the graveyard, because we can go different places every week. One week we could talk Italian giallos. One week we could talk fun United States 80s slashers with boobs, blood, and mayhem. One week we can talk J horror. I just think that's the most fun thing about my show. I try to keep it as much of, fresh as I can. I mean, are there going to be some weeks where we talk about similar things a week after a week? Sure. I mean, that's bound to happen just by the law of fucking physics. But at the same time, it's definitely fun to kind of expand and test the waters of other cultures. Oh, dude, I'm a big seafood guy. You know it. Dean was the best cinematographer in the business. He was, and I really believe he was the secret to John Carpenter's success. Donald M. Morgan, that's right. He did a great job, because Christine is just a gorgeous looking film, in my humble opinion. I'd rather deal with subtitles than see a movie that is less quality. Yeah, and I think even dubbed versions of the original films sort of take away a little something from the actors and actresses' performances, because if you got a film with bad dubbing, like a prime example, and I don't know if AJ's still here, but House by the Cemetery, you watch the English dubbed version of that movie, it can actually fucking cripple that film, because the Bob character is just so fucking annoying. Every time I watch House by the Cemetery, I watch the Italian fucking subtitle version. I do not want to listen to bad dubbing, because that bad dubbing can distract you. It can hurt the fucking film. It really can. So every time when I put on that Blu-ray of fucking House by the Cemetery, you bet your ass I'm playing the Italian 2.0 mono soundtrack. That's just me. I know a lot of people that, fuck that. That's a lot of work. I understand. But at the same time, I think it really does hurt the actor's performance, because that little kid in the Italian soundtrack, it's fine. He's just another little kid that's scared. It's not annoying. It's not taking away from what I'm watching. And I think that a lot of people miss out on that, unfortunately. And that's a big problem with subtitles. I mean, a lot of people have problems with it, but it is what it is. I completely respect anybody that doesn't want to deal with it. I can see where you're coming from. Don't get me wrong. But part of me also thinks that you're missing the entire experience, if you will. I think it can just always be a little bit better if you do watch it with the subtitles. You're going to get the most out of the original actors. If you still think they're bad, they're bad. But at the same time, it's not going to be hindered by somebody who, in American or English language, fucked it up. You know, that's what's funny about Spontaneous Combustion VHS tape makes a cameo appearance in the Ring remake. I did not know that. That's very interesting. If there's a screenshot of that, Aiden, please direct message that to me. That's fucking funny. I didn't. We're not going to be talking about the Ring remake. Like, I didn't watch that for the show, although I can give my thoughts on it if you guys are interested. But I did not know that. That's very interesting. I of course, you got to throw a Hooper nod in there. I love it. To me, like watching a silent movie, I would rather not have subtitles, but if I had the option, I would choose the English dub. Yeah, see, some people are definitely going to say, hey, I'd rather the dub than the sub. It's less work for what I have to do. And you sometimes can appreciate the visuals way more. Like, I find it when I watch a, foreign horror film, sometimes it can take away from me seeing every visual, but that's why I like to revisit films. Sometimes I'm like, all right, I really want to focus on plot here. I don't want to miss anything in the plot here. So reading like crazy. And then next time I'll be like, let me marvel at the look of this film, the scope of this film, the style. And sometimes that's what I'll do. I'll yin yang. Sometimes I'll try to do both at the same time. It's fun to kind of go back and rewatch it, and you can kind of pick up newer things. Sometimes you're not going to absorb it all in just one sitting, one viewing. Fucking Bob, yeah. That everybody I know that doesn't like that movie, that's the main complaint. Fuck that kid. Fuck Bob. I'm just like, if only you just watched the subtitle version, you would never be saying that. Like, I've seen the movie how many times with the subtitle versions? He's never annoyed me personally. The Flo Chambers in the house. What's going on, good brother? Dude, I'll fist bump you too. Happy Thursday. Hope all is well with you, man. Turns out Bob works for a company about 30 minutes. No fucking way. Dude, you've got to hit up Bob for a picture. You're the ultimate Fulci mark. That would be so cool, man. Be like, I'm with the most hated character in Fulci film history. That would be absolutely fucking amazing. Because just use my imagination what they're saying in a foreign movie. Yeah, that's fun. And that's a way to be more creative with it, I think. Like, fill in the blank, almost like Mad Lib's movies. That's pretty cool. And I know, once again, a lot of people would probably turn their nose up to that, but that is what it is. But it's fun. That's the beauty of imagination, I think. And you can kind of fill in the own blanks with your own head. I think that's pretty cool. Oh God. How would I fix Creepshow 3? Well, first of all, I wouldn't have spent all the money to buy the rights like James Doodleson and Anna Claval did, because they're a bunch of stupid idiots, and their mommies and daddies probably dropped them on the head when they were children. I mean, I don't think I'm going too far out of the way to say that. Man, they had a budget of $5 and a ham sandwich. I will say this: they were fans. You could tell they were fans of the original, but it doesn't work. You totally took a shit on Stephen King and George Romero's legacies, and I think in a lot of ways it shows in that film because they tried to bank off those names. That was a movie where they took those three names, Creepshow, Romero, King, and they said, how can we fucking milk this? And they crashed and burned. Good. I'm happy they did. I know that James Doodleson is actually an executive producer on the Creepshow series, the show on Shudder. And I like that show, but I have to believe he's not on set for anything. Like, I have to believe that just since he owns the rights, he's like, oh, put me as a producer and you're going to pay me. But in the meantime, I'm not going to do shit creatively because he's not creative. He's a fucking piece of shit, in my opinion. Train to Busan would be completely ruined if it was dubbed, to be honest. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, there's so many films that people don't even realize, like, yeah, it could be completely ruined by a bad English dub. It just, in my opinion. No, don't get me wrong. Have I watched films with bad dubbing and liked them? Sure. But at the same time, man, subtitles the way to go. Subs is greater than dubbed, personally. But it's nice that they have both options. If you prefer dubs, that's fine. I have seen both versions of Train to Busan, and the dub version is pretty good. Oh, okay. So very interesting. I've not seen the dub version. I can't lie. I've only seen the sub version. I thought Train to Busan was a really, really fun film. And I've yet to see the sequel. I've heard only bad things. But we're almost about like a half hour into this, so I guess we should probably get on to Ringu and the entire Ringu saga, because there's a lot to talk about with these four movies. And man, it may get confusing because watching these four movies, like I'll say right off the bat, Ringu is my favorite, like by a mile. I love Ringu, and with the sequels, not including a prequel, it could get fucking confusing and like I don't know, man. We'll get into that shit. It can get pretty batshit crazy. But I want to say before we start, cheers to everybody. I'm drinking the old, I know, I'm like a walking cliche or a sitting cliche, I guess, tonight. We got some Mountain Dew tonight. Yes, the ribbon again. I don't know why. I guess by me, they just did not sell these during Christmas time. And they were just like, fuck it. Like, just put them out again. Like, somebody will fucking buy them. But I've got the red Solo cup filled with Mountain Dew. So cheers to everybody that's here. Cheers to an awesome weekend and a nice night in the graveyard. We're going to get right into some Japanese horror. Delish Mountain Dew for me and you. And if anyone wants to say what you're all drinking, you totally can. Absolutely, as long as you're driving responsibly, by God. It's sort of funny how much you hate Creepshow 3. Well, it's a piece of shit. Sorry. It takes the emotion away, not hearing the real. It does. It does. It hurts the performance, and it's not the actor's fault. Oh, you did a shitty English dub on me? Oh, and everyone's shitting on my performance now. I feel fucking bad for the actor that played Bob, personally. But again, that may just be me. I don't know. A lot of people seem to hate him, but it wasn't his fucking fault. The reason I couldn't stand Old Boy English dubbing, exactly, it can hurt the film, and Old Boy's a masterpiece. You can make Creepshow 3.5. Well, I'm sure you do much better than how they did. First, yes, and I'm really excited to talk about it. Salute, smacked by the Mac. Jesus Hernandez is in the house. The Jesus rolls with us tonight in the graveyard. What's going on, Jesus? How are you, good brother? Hope all is well. Probably Old Dew you're drinking. Yep, that's damn right what I'm drinking, brother. Salute Junebug Films. Yes, sir. Always salute Ty Junebug. Chars to the weekend, everybody. We have, dude, we do. We have God himself in the chat. God, the Son of God in the chat, bro. Son of Mary. I am drinking some Dr. Pepper. Dude, I was drinking some Dr. Pepper at work today. I love Dr. Pepper. Total mark for Dr. Pepper. Total shock to Ty Junebug Films wants us to recommend. Oh, shit. Shots fired. But without further ado, we're going to read a little plot synopsis, and we're going to get right into our first film of the evening right now. All right. So in 1998, a little film called Ringu got released, and here's the plot synopsis. A reporter and her ex-husband investigate a cursed videotape that is rumored to kill a viewer 7 days after watching it. Yes, Ringu. Now, this to me is one of the more important horror films of the later half of the 90s. Whether you're talking Japanese horror cinema, whether you're talking American, Italian, whatever country you're talking about. I do think this is one of the biggies. And in a lot of ways, I look at this and the Blair Witch Project as two of the biggies that I love the most. And at a time where in 96, where Scream came out and set the world on fire, it was almost like all of these ripoff films were coming out. Of course, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, Valentine, all this shit was coming out after it that was more tongue-in-cheek, that was more self-aware, that was more poking fun and parodying the genre in some sort of aspects. Now, there were some serious films with those parody elements, but at the same time, I would have to say that the genre was almost poking fun at itself. And while there can be scary aspects in all those films I just mentioned, I don't think any of them are quite as scary and impactful as the first original Ringu and the Blair Witch Project, for that matter. I really love the Blair Witch Project. But this one, I always loved how it opened. It opens with these two girls, and they're just these two schoolgirls talking about whatever, talking about boys, talking about this videotape that one of them has watched. And they're giving you all the exposition and quote unquote rules, I guess if you want to go by the Scream standard, rules of this videotape. So one of them watched this videotape with her boyfriend and her other two friends, and she was terrified of it. Oh, it was a scary tape. And once it ended, we all got this call that we will die in 7 days. And I just love the direction in this movie, in this opening scene by Hideo Nakata, and how he slowly but surely builds to that slow burn and then the payoff. He somehow makes this entire scene terrifying and not much really happens. There's one girl, she goes on and on about, I watched it, today's the 7th day, I gotcha. And then as soon as they're laughing, the phone rings and they both look. It's almost as if she's trying to work you, and then the tension you think is gone, but bam, that phone rings and holy shit, is somebody listening to this conversation? What's going on right now? Of course they pick it up and it's one of their moms. Of course it is. But then of course there's this kind of slow pan to this on television, and one of the girls, she walks into the room, turns around, bam, freeze frame, and then the film kind of goes underway, and we're kind of just thrown into this wonderful mystery as we follow this reporter and her investigating this tape and her trying to figure out what happened to these 4 kids who all died at the same time from being either a heart attack or being scared to death. And I think why this film really works is, for me personally, is just how scary it is. It's one of those really unnerving films, and I really like Hideo Nakata's style as a filmmaker because he's not one to try to go with the boo scares. He's really not. And I don't mind boo scares. I actually am a big believer and lover of boo scares, but I really like how he just tries to make every scene unnerving and uncomfortable. For example, we go to the funeral of the girl we see die in the opening scene, and this reporter is her aunt, and she's kind of poking around. Her son runs up into the girl's room, and he's looking around, and even though nothing really happens, you're still kind of nervous of what could happen. And she walks in the room, she's looking around. We see how the mother found her daughter in the closet with this kind of petrified look on her face, and which has now become parodied, which is a shame, but it's how scary that is. The image of finding your own child literally petrified to death in the closet. And I don't know, personally, that's just, oh man, it gets under your skin. There's some really, really good tensions in this movie. And I always love some of the visuals, of course. The 4 people that watched the tape, they took a picture together at this lodge, at this inn, after watching the tape. And this reporter, she finds it, and all of their faces are distorted. All of their faces look almost like mangled in the photo, almost as if some curse is has gone even over the flash photography. Really cool. Really, really cool little touch there. And we kind of follow this reporter as she finds the tape and watches it. And I always loved the simplicity of the tape. It's not much. Again, there's not that much. There's some things that people kind of slowly but surely kind of happen on this tape. And it all kind of culminates to this last, shot that really burns into your head of this well in the middle of nowhere as well, and you see something kind of emerging, and then the tape cuts, and then of course she gets the call, 7 days, you will die in 7 days, and the rest of the film almost acts as a countdown for the 7 days. And the lead protagonist, she's having these visions and these dreams of this well in this area, and it's just very atmospheric. I adore the atmosphere that Hideo Nakata was able to create with this film because he's a really slick filmmaker, really smooth filmmaker. I like the way he sets up certain shots. And he really, I think, is one of the biggest reasons as to why this film works and why it is ultimately scary. And eventually, we are introduced to this reporter's ex-husband, and she shows him the tape. And then, of course, the two of them are trying to kind of unravel the mystery of this tape. And I don't know, I just personally, I just love that setup. I think that's a classic horror movie setup. This tape that's cursed, this countdown that's inevitable, you will die in 7 days. Is there any way we could solve this mystery in time, save our lives, and spare ourselves the fear of whatever the consequence will be? by getting to that seventh day and dying on that seventh day. And I just think that's just great setup, a great, interesting setup that keeps you kind of on the edge of your seat the entire way through. Even though this is a slow burn film, I will have to say it's really well paced. It has a good pace. It's not a boring film. It never really gets boring, in my humble opinion. And that's why I really, really love Ringu. Ringu has some great atmosphere. Every scene doesn't feel safe. Exactly. Yes. There's so many scenes where even after watching it, you know nothing's going to happen, but you're still just, oh man, what if something does this time? What It's so unnerving. It's a really scary film. Yes, the petrified look. Another movie series, scary movie fucked up for me. Yes, that's I think it was Scary Movie 3 that parodies The Ring, and even The Ring 2 in a lot of ways, the American Ring 2. And even we can go on into like Rings, which just came out a few years ago, which fucking had the cursed videotape playing on a plane. Fuck me, man, that's fucking stupid. When I saw the trailer of that, I literally just conceded defeat. Like like if I had the white flag, I would have fucking just horrible shit. But I could see that. I know a lot of people that feel that way. I just think it's stupid, but I completely beg to differ. I think it's a very effectively scary film. 7 days, 7 days. Yes, Sadako is coming for us. It's really effective horror. They did John Carpenter angle of horror and turned it up to 11. Yes, it's one of those films where you definitely see that he had some influence in some certain America films. Like he said, Poltergeist. That was a film that scared him as a kid, and I think that's really cool. And also film like The Terminator, which people don't realize, but the last shot of Ringu is basically ripped off from the last shot of Terminator. We'll get there, but it's exactly the same fucking ending shot, which I always thought was interesting. Like I was like, did this motherfucker just rent Poltergeist and Terminator and was like, one day, one of these days, one of these 7 days, I'm gonna put this in one of my movies. I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting, but it's nice again, because a lot of I will say this: I think Americans get a lot of shit. American filmmakers, that is, get a lot of shit from taking and borrowing from Japanese horror and Italian horror, and even in some aspects, some Mexican horror. I think it's very funny because sometimes, hey, this is a Japanese filmmaker that took some aspects and elements and even an ending shot from some American classics. So I think the beauty of it is we all sort of rip each other off from time to time, no matter who does it first, who does it second. The fact is we still do it, and it's going to be continue to be done probably until the ending of time. Hopefully that's a long time from now, but I definitely think that's a theme you're going to see for a long time to come. And it's just funny because it seems like Americans get more, oh, you stole this, Quentin Tarantino, you stole that. But bullshit. Everybody steals a little bit. Not everybody's entirely fucking original. All right. That's a fact. I love how Ringu's director was inspired. Yes, he was. That's true. Rings is a fucking. I've not seen it. I saw the trailer and I just said no. Martin Henderson was good in the American remake. Mainly, I like him as an actor. Yes, I really like him. I really like Naomi Watts. I think those two play off really well together. I actually think the Ring remake is not a bad film. And I think a lot of the reasons for that is Gore Verbinski's direction. I thought he brought a lot to the table as a filmmaker, as a visual, just kind of a visual look to it. And it's, even though again, we're talking rip-offs, he does rip off a lot of the shots in this movie. I mean, Hideo Nakata, he pretty much laid the groundwork for the Ring remake. I mean, there's so much that he stole from it. But at the same time, I do think he brought enough of a unique flair and kind of a vision as a director, Gore Verbinski, that remake isn't horrible. In fact, it's probably one of the better ones. I would say that. Like, trust me, they're very rare that I'm going to put a remake over. Very fucking rare. But that's definitely one that I would give a passing grade to. It's not I don't think it's a classic. I know some people like it more than its Japanese counterpart. Highly beg to differ on that. I think it lacks quite a few things that this original has. But again, that's just me. Everybody steals from everybody, of course, yes, and that's it. Oh man, I love me some Naomi Watts. She's fucking beautiful. Especially in Mulholland Drive. That's like one of my favorite movies. I love Mulholland Drive. But I sort of like the overall, like I was saying, the pacing of this film and where it kind of all leads up to where the ex-husband, he kind of has this ESP power where he can touch people and he can kind of see their pasts. And of course, weirdly enough, you see the past of this woman, and this woman and her like doctor who she was having an affair with, and basically the two of them were trying to prove that ESP was real to these bunch of news reporters, and the whole scene is done in black and white. And I love that there's this one reporter, and he's like, fraud, this woman is a fraud, I say. And all of a sudden he just like croaks and just drops dead right on the floor. And then everybody kind of turns and everyone's like, oh, is it Shizuku? That's the mother. Did you kill her? And she turns and she goes, no, it was Sadako. And we turn and we see Sadako for the first time, one of the most notorious villains in my opinion, Japanese horror, if not just overall horror history. And it's Sadako running out of the backstage area with this iconic look of the hair draped over her face. We never see her face in this film, which I think was a big mistake in that American remake, and even in Ringu 2. We'll get there too. That iconic look, just the hair over the face, the white dress, that really put that look over. It's iconic. It's something that's burned into your memory and that you never forget it. And of course, she willed this guy dead. That even though this mother has all these powers of ESP and she can see things, her daughter is even more powerful. She can just will somebody dead just by the snap of a finger or just by looking at you. She can will you dead. And afraid of her power, the doctor character kind of bludgeons her with an axe and throws her down this well, which serves as the ring. And I just think that, again, what a great backstory. That's anything great horror movie needs, is that great backstory. Here was this shy little kid with hair draped over her face. We never see her face. We don't ever see if she has an innocent or scary look to her. We're able to fill in those blanks with our own mind while looking at something that, in my opinion, is just iconic to look at. And here was this little girl who was a monster, and she could just will your ass dead. And so afraid of her power, instead of looking into it and maybe trying to reverse it, he says, fuck that shit. I'm hitting this bitch in the head. I'm throwing her down a well. And of course, the legend is told that it took her 7 days before she died. She tried to claw out of the well, and she has no fingernails, of course, and that's why it takes 7 days to kill the person. Just really creative, really, really good stuff, in my humble opinion. I just love that setup. Of course, it was taken from a novel by Koji Suzuki, and it was like a whole series of books, followed by Spiral, aka Rasen, which was the following film to this. And then, he also made like an anthology where the Ringu Zero story is actually based off of the short story Lemon Heart. It's only like 100 pages long, but it's interesting that he wrote this novel first, and then the director was able to just make this so scary and give such a good life to this. And now our leads are like, hey, we've got to go find the well where her remains are and give her the proper burial. So maybe this curse will be broken. They, of course, do it. There's some great tense atmosphere scenes where they're trying to get all the water out of this well and find the body. And it's scary. It's truly scary. But they find her. They find the body. They give it the proper burial. And everybody, including me, when I first saw this, I thought all was going to end well. I thought that was a good little movie. That was really a good little movie. And we can, I turned the safety on, if you will. Like everybody always talks about, oh, after the prom scene in Carrie, after Carrie dies afterwards and the house burns down, you turn that kind of safe. All right, it's over. It's over. And then that hand jumps out of the grave, or Jason jumps out of the water. This film has its own version of that. And I think it's the reason for me why what separates this from a good film, like I said, oh, that was a good little film, from a classic. And of course, all feels fine. And of course, the ex-husband, he's sitting down in the living room drinking some fucking tea, turns and his TV turns on. And it's the well. It's the last shot of the videotape. And all of a sudden, this figure crawls out of the ring. And it is Sadako walking slowly but surely towards the camera, that's filming this death tape. And he's watching this, and his phone rings. He looks back, but he's so invested in what he's watching. Next thing you know, Sadako comes out of the television and into his living room floor. And just the actor, I want to get his name right here. I forget the actor's name. I know it's weird. He's credited last on IMDb. Like, I don't understand why. So I have to scroll down for this guy's name, because this guy does a great job acting. Hiroyuki Sanada as Ryuji Takayama. He does a fantastic job selling it with his eyes, and you feel the fear that he feels in that moment. It's just a terrifying scene as Sadako slowly but surely starts to crawl to him. You see the great special effects on her nails. There's nothing there. They're all just like blood sores and shit of her clawing up this well after the 7 days, of course. And just looking at this guy, he goes down, he's selling all the fear, and then you just see an eye of Sadako, and he dies. He's scared to death, literally. Iconic. One of my favorite moments in the history of the genre, because it's another one of those where, again, I turned my safety on. I was completely, all right, good little movie. We're going to move on to the next. No, it has a really dark twist ending there. And I thought that it was not only just scary, but just super memorable and super. Everybody's had that thought before. What if that monster could come through the screen? I know it's attacking the people right now, and I'm sitting here cozy on the couch with my Mountain Dew and popcorn, but what if they could come through the screen and attack me? And this movie kind of answers that question, and I think they answered the best possible way. And it's just such a haunting scene. It's something you can never forget. And I know a lot of people, again, they've seen the remake of The Ring first, and I actually know people that saw that remake in the theater that said the theater, they just popped when that happened. I mean, it was just an oh shit, a collective holy shit moment. And I couldn't imagine for the Japanese audiences who had never, of course, this movie had never been released, just that reaction, that theater reaction, like, holy shit, if I could had the old time machine, I would love to look and see what the hell people's initial reactions were, because mine was always like, just like, Ryuji's, this holy shit, man, like, this is fucking crazy. It's just brilliant, man. It really is a brilliant scene. And I think that's why this movie really stands the test of time. It's that iconic shot of Sadako coming out of the ring and into your living room and literally killing you with just the look of fear. I love that. I think it's so simple, but it's just so damn effective. I adore it. And I think also, some of the other horror elements of this movie work really well too. It's the idea of, what would you do if there was a countdown? What would you do if you were told you have 7 days to live? Who knows? What would you do? I don't know. If you told me right now, Grande, 7 days, next Thursday, live in the graveyard, Sadako is going to crawl through your 43-inch LED TV, and she's going to scare your ass to death, and you're going to fucking slack jaw and look like you fucking just died, or actually just died. But I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I don't know how I'd spend my last 7 days. Would I spend it in fear? Would I spend it trying to solve what's going to happen to me? Would I just decide, hey, let me enjoy the last 7 days? Let me just, and they do that in this film. There's a scene where she takes her kid out to see the grandfather, and they go fishing for the day. And that's where a lot of people go, oh, well, that's why is that in the film? Screw that. No, that's something that somebody would do. Just a nice night out with a family member, fishing, laughing, not thinking about the inevitability of the end. I like that. I think that's such an interesting question to kind of pose to your viewer. What would you do? Because I mean, anybody. I mean, we could all. This is open to the chat. Anybody and everybody can answer here. I'm not trying to say that you can't. I already see AJ answered. But that just always got to me. What would I do? I would probably try to enjoy it for the 7 days. I would probably try not to think about it personally. That's just me, though. I don't know. I missed quite a few comments. We're just going to start from here. If I missed your comment, feel free to comment again. King Nigord's in the house. Good brother Corey. How are you, my friend? Hope all is well with you. King Nigor, Ringu is quite dope. I quite agree with you, good sir. That is the most iconic scenes in horror. It really is. It really is one of the most iconic, because it slams everything home. It's really, I put it up there with one of the great twist endings. if you could call it that. I guess it's not really a twist, but it's just a dark ending, man. Every single time, it just never. I'm like, oh shit! I remember the first time I thought I was so terrified, like I was so scared. And it's funny in the sequels, they're scared. Everyone's scared to put on a TV, and you could see why. But man, I don't know. It truly works to me. Hiroyuki is a badass actor. He's Scorpion. Yes, he is. That's true. He's also in the Wolverine. Awesome actor. He has a great look to him. I think he's just a great. All this entire series, I think they got really good casting choices. Just love the look to a lot of these characters, especially the lead in Ringu Zero. She was just beautiful, man. Popped off the screen for me. We'll get there too. The ending in the original is done way better than the remake. Hiroyuki's acting in the final, yeah, I completely agree. 7 days fucking drink. Hell yes, Mr. Zitro. See, I expect nothing less. But seriously, I'm sure some people would do that. Let me drink, let me have a little sex, let me go out a nice little walk in the park. Almost checking off the list of what would I do the final week of my life? I don't know. It's kind of morbid to ask, but this film kind of answers that. There are some days where she's terrified. There are some days where she's like, "Hey, I want to go see a family member. I want to see my father, see how he is." I like that. I think it's simple, but it's effective. 7 days left. Go to New York and have floppy pizza with Grande, dude. If we both got a week to go, we're having some floppy pizza, and then I'll meet you in Chicago. We'll have some fucking deep dish, and then we'll debate till the fucking sun rises and Sadako comes out of the fucking TV screen about which one's better. But I would love to do that for sure. Hiroyuki is one of my favorite actors, and his mentor in martial arts, Sonny Chiba. Ooh, yeah. Imagine if Hideo did a remake of Poltergeist. It would be way better than the 2015 Spit in the Face. Yeah, no, the Poltergeist remake. Holy fucking shit, man. That's I don't know if you all watched the Horror Boy Nate's channel. He did a funny ass rant to that movie with the fucking squirrel, the CGI squirrel. Nate, one of my favorite reviews of all time is his rant on that movie. It's fucking hilarious, man. 7 days go out in a blaze of glory. Of course, man. Of course. But at the same time, I don't know, man. Maybe you just dread it the whole time. Maybe you're like, oh man, what if I could change it? You can't. Just let it be, you know. And but another thing, I mean, I guess you could ask this question to the chat as well. The kind of reason why the girl who watches the tape, our lead who watches the tape and she doesn't die, is because she made a copy of it and showed it to her ex-husband. He dies. It's almost like she passes it on to him. So would you make a videotape and sell out a friend or family member and say, hey, watch this tape and leave the room? Then that person's fucked. That person's cursed now. And or could it be one of those things where you just keep passing the tape along before the curse is up? Oh, now, okay, curse, pass it along. This way, if you do it before the 7 days are up every week, Sadako can't kill anybody, theoretically. Granted, these movies, when it comes to continuity, as the sequels go on, what the fuck? We get into the Rasen film, which I don't know if a lot of people have seen. I was dumbfounded watching that film because the ending is just bizarre. Like, it truly is bizarre. But yeah, no, that's another thing. Like, would you sell out a family member? And this film ends where you get that Terminator shot of her driving towards the grandfather's house and, hey, Dad, I need you to do a favor for me. Because we find out that the son, Yoichi, he's watched the tape. And now she has to pass along the curse to somebody else if she doesn't want her son to die. And of course, who else than her own father to take the fucking bullet, basically, in for lack of a better word. Interesting, very interesting kind of finale as it ends. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is a movie that inspired Western civilization culture. This is a really big influencer of a film when it comes to not just the American remakes with films like Shudder, films like One Missed Call, all these remakes that came out in America, The Grudge, but even in Japanese culture. I don't know if you'd have Ju-on the Grudge without Ringu. I don't know if you'd have Pulse. I don't know if you'd have like all these movies that came out after that kind of really followed the lead that this movie started. I don't know. I know that Ju-on was an idea around or at the same time as this, but I don't know. I think without Sadako, there is no Kayako. There is no Toshibo. There's none of that. Like, there's none of that. I think without this was just a huge influencer. And I think it really, even though where a film like Scream may have saved horror, a lot have said, and I kind of agree with that, or made it popular again, it made it make money again. I think The Ring and I think movies like The Blair Witch Project, they made horror scary again, truly scary and frightening again. And that's why I think Ringu stands the test of time. It's the total package. It's a slow burn with a great creative original concept, scary scenes, a great slick sly direction from Hideo Nakata, and I think that it's really one of the best horror films of the late 90s. And when it comes to Japanese horror films, it may be my all-time favorite. I absolutely love Ringu. I'm going to come in with a solid 9.5 out of 10 here. I just adore Ringu. I think it's an all-time masterpiece. A couple more comments. Nate did a great job on the rant of the 2015 remake. Yes, he did. I agree. That's a fun video. And Hiroyuki can so intimidating for sure. Yeah, isn't that funny? Like that's the guy who plays Scorpion, a 5'6" guy. Very crazy. But sometimes it's just it's the presence more so than a guy's height or strength, if you will. Yes, and I would give it to Junebug. No offense, I must survive. Oh shit, man! You're giving the tape to Ty Junebug. I don't know about that. I don't know how he'll accept that. Maybe he'll pass it on to somebody else. But I don't know. I personally, I don't think I could sell anybody out. If I went in on my own willing and watched the tape, I would take my comeuppance. I would be it. Like I would not try to sell somebody. I really wouldn't. I really would. I would live it up those last 7 days and I would go down. I would. That's personally me. I would never, man. But it does beg the question, would you even do it if it was a loved one? Because selfishly you go yes or no. I think it's an easier question, but what if it is your child? What if it is your significant other? What if it is your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad? What if you could step in and save them? What if? It's funny enough, the next film kind of touches upon that, but I don't know, man. This next film, I don't know how to explain this next film at all. But that is Ringu. It is on Tubi for free. I know you can watch it on Tubi for free. It's also on YouTube for free. Highly recommend it. It's funny. I like to have the physical copies of these, but Arrow, they did a collection of all four of these movies, and unfortunately, it's out of print. It goes for stupid money now. I can't see dropping it because I actually watched all four of these movies this past week for free, either on Tubi or YouTube. So can't beat that in my humble opinion. And three of the four were in high def. I mean, perfect quality, and just all of them just look really really good. Except Ringu Zero, that I watched on YouTube. That was kind of a shitty transfer, but there is a Blu-ray that does exist. I wish they just released them individually. This way I could just buy them. That would be really cool. But I don't know. That maybe somewhere down the road that will happen. But I don't know. In the meantime, we can jump into our next film. And this, man, this is going to be interesting because this was a weird fucking film. And like, even though this has its moments, I don't even know what I think about this film. Like, I can't even say to you I like it or not. Like, it's just going to be a weird fucking film to discuss. But weirdly enough, so all right, Ringu was released January 31st, 1998 in Japan. It grossed a shit ton of money. Now everybody's thinking, well, when's the sequel coming out? When's the sequel coming out? January 31st, 1998. Yes, the same exact day that Ringu hit theaters in Japan, its sequel, Spiral, hit theaters in Japan. Fucking weird, I know. But the idea of it was almost like the Robert Rodriguez Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse double feature, and you were going to have, first you will go see The Ring, and then you will go see Rasen, aka Spiral. Rasen was its Japanese title, if you will. But what I think happened, and it could be a lot of different things, what happened here. It could have been people saw Ringu and went, wow, that's amazing, and not realize that Spiral was the sequel. I'm sure that probably happened. Sometimes double bills can be confusing because if one's called Ringu and the other one's not, Ringu 2 or, Ringus or whatever, if it's not called something with Ringu in the title, people may not even realize it's a sequel. And some people may have gone to just see Rasen Spiral as itself, not knowing it was a sequel. I think what they did here was they completely overdid it. They completely like shot their load too much here because what they should have done was, hey, we're going to release Ringu, see how it does. That's how every fucking horror original, whatever. And if that sets the world on fire, then you can greenlight that sequel. They were so confident that they were like, we're going to do double shot same day, and we're going to do double money, double this, double that. Well, Ringu set the world on fire and made tons of box office records in Japan at the time. Spiral shit the bed. Crazy, I know, but it's just wild to me. Like, there's so many reasons why I think this movie was a big failure. In a lot of ways, it's now kind of retconned. Like, nobody talks about this film, and I can kind of see why. But at the end of the day, it's such an interesting fucking failure. It really is. Like, it's one of those. It's not like, oh, it's somebody got fucking T-boned on the highway. It's just two cars. This is like a train wreck, but in the most watchable way I can describe. It really is. This is like a great train wreck. It's fucking weird, man. But I'm not retconning it on the show today. Right now, we're going to get into it. I'm going to give a little plot synopsis. Here we go. So Spiral, aka Rasen, a young pathologist, seeks answers to the mysterious death of a friend and soon comes into contact with the same cursed videotape that caused the death of his friend's wife and son, which is haunted by the curse of Sadako, a relentless spirit. Yes, Spiral from 1998. I mean, this is a fucking crazy film. We basically follow our lead character here, and I want to get his name right too, because I thought he did a good job. And I read a lot of reviews where people were burying this guy. Completely disagree. I think this actor did a fine job. Koichi Sato, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I am not. As Mitsuo Ando, he does a really, really good job as the lead of this film, in my humble opinion. I really like him as our protagonist. And he is this guy who's dealing with the loss of his son. His son died in a drowning accident, and you keep seeing he has like PTSD from the son passing away, and he's scared about that, and he's very suicidal about that. Like, the opening scene, he's literally trying to cut his own wrists, and he can't do it. He can't bring himself to do it, and you see that he misses his son. Like, it's truly haunting him. And then the following scene, he's doing the autopsy on Ryuji from the previous film, right after he had been scared to death by Sadako. Really interesting. Really, like when this started, I will be honest, this was a first time watch for me, because this movie, it's pretty much an erased fucking film. Like, nobody talks about it. It's basically like it doesn't exist. But I don't know. In a lot of ways, I like to look into stuff like this because it's interesting. And I do know there's a cult audience that thinks this is not, if not the best Ring film, it's the best sequel of all of them. Granted, I'm not one of those people. I will spoil that. I'm definitely not one of those people. But part of me can see their argument at this, weirdly enough, at the same time. We follow him, and he does the autopsy of his friend, of course. And then we get basically this idea that the tape's curse is not just spreading only through the tape, but it can spread through other things. Of course, our lead from the last film, she had a journal that she was writing about from time to time. You see it like once or twice in the first film. And if you read the journal, you can be cursed. And if you come in contact with, like, weird, really weird, like, the tape concept is almost thrown out in this movie. There's only one person in this movie that watches the tape and dies, which I find very interesting because that was the whole plot and driving force for the previous film. So it's very weird. It's like, now it's like, oh, we're going to change the rules around. Now it's through writing. It can be passed on. And I'm not even fucking kidding. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm not. Through fucking sex, it can be passed on, because our lead character, he has been reading this diary, and he soon comes to find out through visions of Sadako haunting his dreams and his everyday life that she's kind of cursed him. And he's like, shit, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. Part of him's like, maybe I'm better off. I'll die and I'll be with my son in heaven, hopefully. He doesn't know what to do. He's conflicted. And he meets this Mei character who was with Ryuji's character in the last film. Like, he was his girlfriend. It's not ever said, but it's heavily implied that Ryuji and Mei were banging. He gets with her. They have some interesting discussions about what Ryuji meant to both of them, and how she could sort of use the ESP2, but not always through contact. Like, fucking weird. Like, Ryuji, if he touched you, he could see your past. This bitch, sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. Same thing with Ringu too, which I it confuses me. I don't. It's very poorly explained. But those two bang. May and our lead in this film, they bang, and then she dies shortly after that. Okay, so he passed the curse off to her by shooting his seed in her. And not just that, not just, oh, I fucked you and you have the curse now. Now she gave birth somehow in between days. So he had sex with her. She had the child, was killed somewhere along the way by Sadako, and the child grows up in minutes to be a grown version, replica, copy, whatever, of the May character, but it's Sadako. So Sadako in this film has a motive, and Sadako in this film is reborn through May's uterus. What the fuck? Like, what were they thinking, man? This is crazy. Like, I'm sitting here watching this going, what the fuck? After what the fuck? Like, I couldn't believe some of the shit and turns this movie takes. Like, completely couldn't believe it. Like, I've not read the novel Spiral. From what I've read online, the people who like that book hate this fucking movie. So part of me assumes that that's not like they sure they may have read parts of the book, but this is its own fucking animal. I don't know. Very fucking weird though. Like, and there's a scene in this movie, I shit you not, and I think it really actually hurts the Sadako character. Is Sadako comes out of the TV in this one to our lead character, and she starts fucking kissing him and shit. Like, and you see her face, and she's not a bad looking woman. Like, there's no shot of her in this movie with the iconic the hair over her face. There's not one shot of that. She comes out clear as day. You see her face. She's all over this guy. Oh, make love to me. Make love to me. What the fuck? Like, all of a sudden, and it's weird because these films were made at the same time, released in the same day. Like, how do you have two films that are connected this different? And not only is plot-wise different, stylistically it's very different because they brought in director, I want to get his name here too, Joji Idea, who mostly did lower budget films, and like you can clearly see that the style of Hideo Nakata's Ringu is completely thrown out the window here. There's not much of a style. It's almost it's very stagnant. Like okay, is there one or two good shots here and there? Sure. But it doesn't have the crispness. It doesn't have that same element that Ringu has when it comes to just a style. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's a big point because the style is a huge reason as to why Ringu works. And this film, it's almost like they were like, let's go fucking batshit with the story. Like last film, she was this entity of evil, this monster that we learned little about, this fairy tale on this cursed video, if you will. Now has this fucking like plan, and she's got this whole motive of, you know, I need to be reborn and I want the diary published so when people read it, they'll get cursed by me. And if they have sex, there will be a bit of Sadako in their child and in their children. Like, what? Like, weird shit. And basically, it's down to our lead protagonist to stop this. But his option is he doesn't have to stop it because if he doesn't stop it, he'll be reunited in the afterlife with Ryuji and, most importantly to him, his son who passed away in the drowning accident. And so this guy, and spoilers, I mean, we've gone balls deep into Rasen. I mean, I'm not spoilers. I always have spoilers. All right, that's just me. I'm not talking about. I'm not going to beat around the bush and be like, oh, you should see this, and I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Like, no, like I'm going in depth. If you don't like that, you turn it off. Is what it is. I no offense is taken. He sells out the world. And it's weird. And I know, I guess there's another thing, not a big deal to spoil this, is because Ringu 2, it pretends this film never happened. This film is retconned in the series. It was retconned the same day that the original was released. It's fucking crazy. Like, think about that, man. Like, it's just so goddamn weird. But yes, he sells out everyone, and the entire world will be now encountering the curse of Sadako because this guy wanted to be reunited with his son. And I think that pisses a lot of people off, but part of me tells myself, isn't that what the girl in the original film was doing towards the end, though? Like, she was basically going to sell out her own father to save her son. And now this guy is selling out the entire world to be reunited with his dead son. I get it. It's the same idea, but at the end of the day, I think doing it on a grander scale like that, like, okay, selling out your boy is fucked up. Selling out your family member is fucked up. Don't get me wrong. But it's far more venial to do that than to sell out the world. Like, the world. Like, it's so, like, that's mortal and venial. Like, that's apples and it's completely fucking different to me. Like, I get the idea is the same, but when you put it on that much of grander of a scale, it's kind of a selfish move. But at the end of the day, I really do think, for what it's worth, that that was the point of this filmmaker and the writer. I think that was the point. I think he was trying to say we'll all be selfish if it benefits ourselves and we can get the ultimate thing we desire. And even if that means selling out the world to this crazy bitch who wants everyone to feel the fear that I did. That's what Sadako's line is, word for word is. I want everyone to feel the fear that I did. But what what fear are they going to feel if you have a part and a piece of all of them? Like, I don't get that. I think more feeling your fear is the curse and the tape and the dreading of the 7 days, the countdown. That's more, I think, impactful and feeling if that's the motive, if you will, if you're going to give this character motive, which I don't agree with. I don't think there should be a fucking motive personally. I think if you're going to, though, the way it was going was fine. Like, there was no reason to have her go over the top batshit and be like, "Oh, I want to be reborn through this bitch, and I want to curse the world and all that." Like, very big step to me, and I think that's why this film turns a lot of people off. Personally, the biggest flaw for me is the style. There's just no style there that was in the original film, and it's not scary. It's more where the original goes for suspense, atmosphere, slow burn. This film goes shock value. This film goes batshit. And it's funny because part of me says there have been other sequels that do that, and I like. I like Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I like that they go batshit insane with the Dream Master and the Dream Powers and Kung Fu fighting Freddy and all this shit. It's not, I would be a hypocrite to say that I don't like sequels that take batshit crazy turns because it's happened before and it'll probably happen again. But for this, it just didn't work for me. It really didn't because you had something so scary in Sadako and so mysterious and so it's there is no motive. This just is inevitability, death. Making this character literally like rebirth herself and say, I want to curse the world and I want them to feel the fear that I do. And she's jumping around and acting sexy, coming out of the television and trying to bang the lead character. It's almost like a slap in the face to why Ringu works to me. Because that you're taking a mysterious monster and now she's lusty and she just wants the lust just so she can curse everybody, again, feel her pain or feel her fear. Fucking strange, in my opinion. Rasen is a strange fucking film, man. I really I couldn't explain to you if I like or dislike this movie because there's parts of it I do like. I do think the acting is superb. I really do. I really like the acting. I like the lead. I liked his whole story with his son and he misses his son and what would you do to be reunited with someone who's passed that you love? I get that. We've all been there and that's you can relate to that. But to me, if you're going with that serious tone, Sadako's motive, or in my opinion, should be lack thereof, but that's besides the point. It shouldn't it just shouldn't be that over the top. It really, really shouldn't. You had this great entity, this scary entity, and I think in this film they kind of ruin it. But in the same time, they completely stick with the theme of would you be selfish? Would you not be selfish? So I get it. There's a lot of the themes there that is in Ringu, but it's missing the style, and it sorely, sorely misses the scariness. Just the overall, I'm terrified right now. I'm really scared. None of that happens in this movie. There's no moment where you are scared. It almost becomes a little bit laughable because of how fucking batshit it is. And I don't know. Part of me says, should they have tried the same thing again? Because should they have just rinse repeated, done the Ringu again, just completely done a rip off where okay, more people encounter the tape, up the body count this time, maybe up the scare sequences, maybe that would have been, well, I bet you profitably that probably would have been the best move, and to not release it on the same fucking day. I mean, that goes without saying. But I don't know. Part of me appreciates they tried something this different. Part of me thinks it was just stupid, and it was kind of just met with that lukewarm reaction, and that's why it's retcon to this day. Rasen, aka Spiral, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm gonna come in because I've been thinking about this, believe it or not, since I watched the film, whether I give it the pass or not. To me, like anything over a 5 is a pass. 5 is average. Anything over a 5 is a pass. I can't give this movie the pass. I can't. There are elements I like. It's not the worst movie ever. It's not the worst sequel ever. Trust me, it's not. It's really, really not. I've seen a lot worse fucking sequels than this. I will come in with a 4.5 out of 10. It's just below the average point. I cannot give this the pass, but nowhere near as much do I hate this movie like I hate some other sequels. It's very, like I was saying in the intro before I started talking about the film, it's a very fucking watchable train wreck. And that's the best way I can describe this, because in a lot of ways, I think it can introduce themes that would excite people. And I think that there are some people out there that will go, hey, I like that batshitness and Sadako's evil plan. I like, that's crazy. I'm into that. And there's a part of me that wants to be, but man, didn't work. Just didn't work. It really, really didn't. And that's being completely unbiased. For me as an individual fan, in my humble opinion, that didn't work. But that is Spiral, aka Rasen, which, interesting, really interesting, because now it's pretty much deleted. But we can look back in the comments here. Some of the sequels are good as well. Oh, cool. Which ones do you like, Ty Junebug? Aiden Vabra, I've never seen the sequel. Man, a lot of people haven't. A lot of people haven't. I believe, let's look at IMDb. Only 3,000 ratings for this movie. That's low compared to how many for the original film? Let's see. Well, we can even compare 12,700 for the sequel Ringu 2, which is the movie that replaces this. So almost 10,000 more people have seen Ringu 2 as opposed to Rasen's, aka Spiral, which is the sequel. Very interesting. What do you mean this film has been retconned? Is the sequel not canon anymore? So basically, if you ask the producer or Hideo Nakata, you ask them, it's Ringu, Ring 2, Ringu 0. That's your trilogy. Ringu 0 is a prequel. So in order, it's the prequel, the original, and Ring 2, which we're going to get to right now. This is pretty much erased, even though it came out the same day as a direct sequel to Ringu. So that's how it's retconned, because Ring 2 completely ignores this film, to the point where certain characters that are stated dead in this film, like the mother and the son from the first film, they're stated dead in Rasen. About a half hour in, they go, oh, they died in a car accident. That's it. And they just move on from there. I'm like, what the fuck? Weird. Very weird. But at the same time, this is interesting, they do mention that Sadako was in a drama class, which is pretty much the entire movie of Ringu 0. So maybe elements of this movie aren't retconned, but characters living, dying, and motives completely changed around. And I don't know if it's for the better, because Ring 2, it's an interesting animal, man, we're going to get into right now. Retconning sequels is bullshit unless you have a narrative device into your lore that can explain why it takes place in an alternative universe. Yeah, I think what happened was they saw how much money Ringu made. And I think somebody said, we fucked up. We should not have done Rasen the same day. Even if they kept Rasen in their back pocket, and released it as Ring 2. I wonder what the reception would have been. It probably still would have been bad because it's completely different from Ring and it's completely different stylistically. I think that's the sorest element. I don't know if the plot would matter that much if it was still scary. Like I think that's what people will go to the movies to see. Like the average day Joe Blow, whatever, they want to see some scary shit. That's what they want. They're not going for a plot or Sadako. They don't care. They want to see some crazy, scary shit. And I think that's probably why they went the route they did with Ring 2. But again, that's another movie that like I said, we're going to get into it right now, so I guess we just can. There is a reason why Japanese horror is considered sort of our modern day Italian horror. That's it. Expand, my good brother. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. But before we do, we're going to get into Ring 2. Oh, yes. From 1999, Ringu 2, of course. They bring back Hideo Nakata to right the wrong that was Rasen, aka Spiral. And I have a little plot synopsis. Reiko takes Yoichi into hiding when her son begins to display frightening powers. Meanwhile, Mei Takano, from, of course, she's the one that was killed, passed the curse on through sex, and was reborn as Sadako in the past. That's none of that happens now. Now she's like our lead character, and none of that is ever mentioned. So you see what I mean? How it's being retconned. Mei Takano and the authorities begin a desperate search for them as the mysterious ring curse starts to spread more. Ring 2. I gotta say right off the bat, some of my positives, because this is another movie that I have a lot of each. Positives, the style is back. And Hideo Nakata's direction in this is possibly even better than the first film. If you're trying to watch a good horror movie for cinematography and just excellent fucking shots and just a great direction, Ring 2 is your movie. I mean, out of all of these 4 movies, I will say it right here. This is the best looking of these 4 movies for me. He had a little bit more money to work with this time because of the success of Ringu. And of course, the studio said, hey, we're going to throw a little bit more money at this because we want to right the wrong that we believe Rasen was. Understandable. Very understandable. I can't say the studio is crazy for that. I really can't. But getting into Ring 2, it's weird because the style is back and the atmosphere and the creepy scenes. And I'll run through some creepy scenes because there are quite a few. Once again, it seemed like they didn't know what to do or where to take this story. Because we follow May and we follow her all around town, and there's scenes where they show how her and Ryuji met on this bench. All right, big deal. I mean, it's shot nice, it's acted nice, but like, okay, where are we going with this really? And like, I think the first half hour of it is probably its strongest because that's where you get most of the scare sequences. Like, you get this one scene where she visits the girl's friend from Ringu, the original, that she was with her the night she died, the opening scene of Ringu. She visits her in this mental hospital and she's walking with her and she's, can you tell me anything? Can you tell me anything? And they're walking along in the hallway. And before they get to this kind of rec room, one of the nurses goes, hold on, hold on. And she brings over this curtain and she starts walking with the girl with the curtain. So the girl doesn't have to see the television. She's that traumatized from the experiences that she's gone through that she can't look at the TV anymore because Sadako, the image of Sadako coming out is still haunting this bitch. Thought that was excellent. And Gore Verbinski saw that and ripped it off in the Ring remake. He totally saw that and went, oh man, that's got to be in this movie too. Because it's a great idea. It's the PTSD of being the friend of somebody who fucking got killed by Sadako. Meaning that the curse, even though that person isn't cursed, it's like the PTSD is acting as a curse on you. It's like the curse you cannot break. And the thought of what happened, it just horrifies you to your bitter core. She's walking along and somebody eventually moves the thing and the TV starts to play the Ring tape. And it's almost like she's channeling Sadako. Sadako is going through her. And like, it's just, oh man, it's so good. It's everybody in the rec room starts kind of losing their shit because they're all mental patients. And it's a batshit scene. You're like, oh shit. Like, and when I first started this, I'm thinking, okay, so they're going to up the volume. It's going to be slow burn again, scary again, and probably going to be a bigger body count. They don't really go that route. And what's interesting about this film, this is the only one of the 4 that wasn't based on a novel. because Ringu Zero was based on Lemon Heart, and then of course Spiral and Ringu were their own novels. This one they were had to completely come up with their own original idea. And basically, what happens is we follow this one May, and we find out that the son from the original film, he has these powers that are similar to Sadako's, and he can Jedi force people and shit, and he can't will you dead specifically, but he can push you away with like the force or whatever. And they say part of that is from Ryuji because he had the ESP powers. Of course, now his son has powers similar to Sadako. All right, like unnecessary, but whatever. And then it kind of comes to this conclusion where all these scientists are trying to come up with a way to stop Sadako. And this guy hatches this entire plan that, oh, we're going to fucking have you and the boy connected to each other to channel Sadako. And she's going to fall in this pool of water and like dissipate. That's the idea, that if she comes into the water, her fear and the curse and the rage will all dissipate away in the water. It'll all absorb or dissolve, if you will. Weird, fucking weird. Like what? Like again, like part of me goes, okay, visually this is cool. Like the scene, I like how the director shoots this. It's like a mirror image where you see the stuff coming out in the foreground, and then you see the reflection of them, and it's perfectly symmetrical. It's really, really cool shot. I love the cinematography in this. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like watching it was like watching a painting, like just a beautiful painting. It really was. I love Nakata's direction. I think it was really smart to bring him back because he brought that style, he brought that fear back. But I think what happens here is it's almost like the follow-up to Ringu that just was told so incoherently that the story doesn't really grab you. If you're just here for the scares and the thrills, this is a really great sequel. It really is, because in a lot of ways, I think it's a very scary film. But if you're trying to correct the story of Rasen, at least Rasen's story was so batshit crazy that you couldn't turn away. The plot of this, it's kind of dull at times. Doesn't keep you as engaged as, dare I say, fucking Spiral or Rasen. It doesn't. It really doesn't keep you as engaged. And while I think this is a better film, because in my opinion, when it comes to film and a Ring film, you want to be effectively scary. And I think this film does that. But the story is rather weak. It is rather weak. But it's not a huge detriment to me to this movie because the visuals are still very scary and it's still watchable and it's still well acted. Of course, a few of the actors return from Rasen, aka Spiral, and Ringu, and everybody gives a good enough performance. You have this weird final scene where Ryuichi he appears in the well and he grabs his son's hand. He's like, "Give me your fear. Give me your fear." Like what? Like what? He's transferring his fear to you. And then he goes, "Okay, there's the rope. You can get out of the well." And they're climbing out of the well. And then, of course, Sadako appears. And Sadako claws her way up. And you're thinking, oh, my God, she's going to get them. And Sadako speaks, weirdly enough. And you see Sadako's face. Granted, it's not a beautiful face. This time it's like all clayed and like gross. It almost looks like Jason in part 8 when you see Jason without the mask. It's kind of goofy looking a little bit. It's like it looks like green clay they just smacked on her face. Actually, you know what it reminds me of? Something to tide you over. Very similar to the makeup on Galen Ross. It looks like Galen Ross in Something to Tide You Over. It's a perfect like analogy, and soaking wet, like very. I wouldn't be surprised if they took inspiration from that look. And Sadako looks at the both of them, looks at May, and she goes, "Why are you the only two spared?" And then drops back into the well, and the movie ends. Weird, really weird. Why were they spared? What held her back from killing them? And the whole motif of the tape being the thing that drives each person. Oh, this person's cursed, that person's cursed. That's very rarely in this film. There's one scene where you have this guy and he's interviewing this girl about the tape, and she says, "I haven't watched it." And he says, "I encourage you to." She says, "I will if you watch the tape after, so the curse is passed on." She, of course, watches it. He doesn't, and then she dies. And then she's sort of haunting him through, you know, all of this. I guess she somehow manifested this curse too, or if you die by the tape and somebody wronged you, you can curse them forever. Weird. I don't know. Very convoluted there. And they also the thing I hate about this movie. One thing I hate about it. They tell you that Sadako didn't die in the 7 days. Like they fuck up the entire origin to me, where they tell you that Sadako was alive in the well for 30 years. That bitch was alive in the well and just willed the tape into existence. That's weak. That's very fucking weak writing, in my opinion. It's well, she didn't really die in a week. That's to the point where you're hurting the first film now. Now you're trying to go back and say, oh well, that what they told you in the first film that didn't really happen. No, like don't go there. Don't go there. Be your own thing. Be original. Don't go, oh that was bullshit in the first film, but I'm telling you the truth now. Don't do shit like that because it really it hurts. Like I love that story of the girl that was bludgeoned and thrown in the well because she was so monstrous, and then of course she's cursed on this videotape forever, and she will come and kill you if you watch it in 7 days because that's how long she was down in the well and died. I hate when sequels do that. When sequels say, "Oh, that thing you thought you knew, completely, we're going to change it now." Hate that. That's my least favorite aspect of Ring 2. But I will say, I think there are some great scare sequences in this. There's a scene where the guy who didn't watch the tape for that girl, he's in this editing room and he's editing together some clips and he comes across that interview and he's trying to edit it together. And you see the girl, she starts looking at him and he's like trying to hit the rewind button and everything seems fine. And then she's looking at him again. Scary, really. She has this demonic look on her face, and she got the really good, like evil eyes look to her, just like the down look, like the evil, like mischievous look on her face. Really scary. I like that scene. That's what Hideo Nakata brings to the table. That scary vibe. He just nailed that to me in both these films, Ringu and Ring 2. I really like how scary these films can be at times. But with that said, it can be an incoherent mess at times. It really truly can. And I think in a lot of ways it's interesting to kind of figure out which one of these sequels people like better. Like which it'd be interesting to know. Like I don't know. I see that a lot of you in the chat haven't seen these sequels, but I don't know. I wonder, man, which sequel has the bigger following now? I would think Ring 2 just because of the horror elements. But I mean, in a lot of ways, both of these, Rasen, Spiral, and Ring 2, they're all kind of incoherent and they're all kind of messy. Um, but at the same time, I don't know. I think one works for one reason a little bit better than the other. I think Ring 2 is a far scarier film, and I would say it's slightly superior. Just a slightly above average sequel for me. If I had to come in with the Ring 2 rating, I'm going to come in with a 5.5 out of 10. So it does get the pass. It does get a pass. I think it's worth a watch. Just for the cinematography, scares alone, I think all that stuff is really, really well done here. First half hour of it's great. The last hour, it just completely, I don't know, it just kind of loses you at points. And then that's a big negative because Ringu never loses me at all. But Ring 2, a little bit towards the middle and the final act. Definitely loses you a little bit. But that is Ring 2. We've got a couple comments. Let's see. Hey, I'm back. My phone was effed up and it crashed. Dude, no worries at all. I was planning taking Japanese Italian horror approach to my Friday 13th script. That's interesting. I don't know how would you do that, man? The Italian I could see. I mean, Twitch of the Death Nerve, all that stuff. I could totally see that. But Japanese, I don't know how that would work with Friday 13th. That would be tough, but I don't know. We could totally see what you got. But before that, we can get into the final film we will be talking about on the show tonight, a prequel. Interesting prequel. This was another one I had never seen before. I had seen Ringu, I'd seen Ring 2. I had never seen Rasen, and I'd never seen Ringu Zero. And I got to say that this was a really pleasant watch. And this may just be my favorite movie in the series after Ringu, even more so than the American remake of The Ring. I really like this movie a lot, and we're going to get into it right now. Ringu Zero, got a little plot synopsis for you. In this prequel to Ring, a young Sadako becomes an actress in hopes of escaping her troubled past, but strange visions and terrifying powers soon begin to manifest. Yes, Ringu Zero, directed by Norio. Oh man, I might screw up this name. Taisur Tsuruta, maybe? I don't know. I know he directed Dream Cruise. If you guys are Masters of Horror fans, he's the guy that directed Dream Cruise, which I thought was interesting. This is pretty much his biggest claim to fame from a theatrical film standpoint. This is like the biggest movie in his filmography, and I think he does a really, really good job. Apparently, and now behind the scenes stuff, Hideo Nakata was originally asked to reprise his role as the director of this film, and he passed. So I don't know if it was harsh feelings after Ring 2. I don't know if it was he just didn't want to be associated with this anymore. I don't know, but he did come back to do the Ring 2 in America. So part of me thinks that he just wasn't interested in doing a prequel, um, which is interesting because I think this film has a lot more to say and a lot more to do than the sequel that he directed. Now, does this bring the great direction of Ringu? No, it's definitely that Ringu's better directed than this, I would say. But I do think that Norio Tsuruta, I'm sorry, that name is that's a tough name for me. He does a good job, in my humble opinion, as the filmmaker of this movie. I really do. And I do think that one of the biggest reasons this film stands out is its characters. Whereas in the past two films, you had all this crazy over the top shit. This film, it's like almost like a character driven piece. It's almost, and even the director's gone on to say this film is like a tragedy. We watch Sadako before shit hits the fan because we know how her story ends. We know it ends with her father bludgeoning her in the head with this like short kind of axe thing and throwing her down the ring. But how did we get there kind of thing? Part of me always was why do you need to do this? Like because prequels tend to do that. They demystify their villains. But after what Rasen did to Sadako, I don't know if you really can demystify a villain more than that did, because making her like want sex and to haunt people from beyond the grave, weird. Like that's really weird. Like so this I didn't mind this as much because they almost take like the Carrie approach. This is more like a Carrie knockoff more so than anything else. But I think a really good Carrie knockoff in that, and I think a lot of that is to do by the lead actress who plays Sadako Yamamura, and that's Yuki Nakama. She's just like I always talk on this show about actors and actresses and how I think they should always stand out. Like I think that's a big thing that a lot of filmmakers they don't understand to this day. Like you need a lead that is unique looking, dare I say beautiful, and that stands out. They don't have to be the best actor or actress in the world. They really truly don't. I think if they have that distinct look, it can take your films to a higher place. I really do believe that. And I think I look no further than this movie, Yuki Nakama. Her look is just so innocent, and you really start to feel empathetic for Sadako. And it's weird because in the other film, in the original film, she's looked at as this monster, this entity. She's given no human characteristics. We never see her face because if you do that, you could sometimes hurt what makes that character scary. But this is one of those films that doesn't really destroy that at all to me. As a matter of fact, in some ways, I think it makes the villain even scarier to know that she was just this shy girl trying to do good in drama class and how basically the walls in her life start to cave in around her as we basically watch this tragedy unfold before our eyes. It's a really interesting film in my humble opinion, and it's really an underrated movie. Nobody really talks about this one, and I would say wrongfully so because I really like this. There's a lot going on in it too. Like there's this one reporter, and you find out that she's the wife of the person that Sadako killed at the ESP thing in the original, and she was like the wife, and so she's looking into this, trying to make Sadako pay for killing her husband. There's this guy in the drama class who sort of is falling in love with Sadako, even though she's the weird girl. She's so beautiful and he's drawn to her. And he's trying his best to kind of try to win her over. And even though she'd like that in a lot of ways, she'd like to kind of live happily ever after with him. It's the own curse and her own problems that kind of get in the way, and everybody's hatred towards her that kind of starts to clash. There's a girl that's interested in him that doesn't like Sadako, and it's like, this fucking bitch is trying to steal my man. That character has a point in this. There's this wacky director who knows Sadako can kill people, and he's like, you and me, bitch, you and me. He's thinking that she could take him to the utmost like hierarchies of the directing film business. And he's like, don't you ever go against me, bitch, or I will fucking expose you for what you are. And like, I like that there's so much going on and it's so interesting and fun. And like, I do think that the horror elements are more psychological in this. It's more the horror of what people can do to your life and how good can be steered to oh so bad. I like that. I really like that motif. That's why Carrie works, and that's why I think Ringu Zero works. It's this empathetic character of Sadako that we've never seen before, and we're going to see slowly but surely how the kind of wheels went off the track, if you will. I like that. I think it was a really good place to take this series because after Rasen flopped and after Ringu 2, which I think did a lot better, but at the same time, where do you go from that? Like I don't know where you would go from there. Like I really don't because it's just such a mess plot wise. So here they said, fuck it, let's just take a step back, make one more fucking one more fucking money day, one more payday. But I think they got a lot better what they expected. Now, stylistically, I was saying like this isn't definitely isn't as good stylistically as Ringu and even Ringu 2, but I would say that it's well directed and it's funny like it sometimes this almost looks like a PBS film, like something that would just debut straight to PBS. If you've seen any PBS film, you know what I mean. If you saw this movie, like it's very the look of it sometimes looks like a TV film to me. It's weird. Granted, this was the only one I couldn't watch in high def. I know the Blu-ray exists, but you can only get it in that set. And that set goes for like $160. So rest in pepperonis. I'm not paying $160 for 3 movies. That's crazy. I actually really like Ring Zero, but no, not paying that rest in peps. I'm not happening. But so I don't know, maybe I saw it in a little bit lesser of a quality, but at the same time, I really, really like this entire movie and how it all plays out. And I think that this was kind of the shot in the arm that this series needed because there are some really cool atmospheric dream sequences where there's these people in the drama class that have visions of the house and you see the well and you're like, oh man. And they all have this great story of I'm in this house and I'm afraid to go up the steps. And you get again a slight feel of that tension that's in the first Ringu and Ringu 2, I should say. You get that feeling that oh my god, don't go up those stairs. Whatever you do, don't go up those stairs. I love that. And like I really like how this whole plays out. Like it's Sadako gets the lead in this play after the mysterious death of one of the girls who was going to play the lead, and she dies. Of course, Sadako, I guess, killed her inadvertently. I'm not positive; it's never really stated. But this, of course, this lady that's out together thinks, okay, that bitch did it on purpose. Of course, though, so does the director. And she's all these lines in the play are kind of foreshadowing her character and stuff like that. I like it. It's really fun. And it kind of all culminates to this crazy batshit scene where the play is going on and someone tries to expose her and shit hits the fan. There's this one guy who's trying, Sadako, are you okay? And she fucking goes crazy and he takes a bump onto these fucking lit candles and burns. It's crazy, man. And everybody in the theater's going ape shit. Sadako runs to the back. She doesn't know what to do. And all of these people, which this caught me by surprise, bludgeon her to death. Bludgeon her to death in front of her boyfriend. And like the terror on his face while he can't help her, he's helplessly watching on as his girlfriend's being fucking beaten to death. That was a different type of horror for this series because you don't like this was a much more atmospheric series when it comes to the horror elements. But here's this more emotional horror scene where what if your significant other was beaten and bludgeoned to death right in front of you just because she was misunderstood? Pretty horrific. And I think it's really well acted here. And when I watched the film, I'm saying, where do you go from there? And that she bludgeoned to death there? I thought she was killed in the well and in the ring. Well, turns out all of these people that bludgeon her to death and the boyfriend, they go to the doctor's house. And he tells us this again, I'm not making this up. This is crazy. He tells us that there is not just one, but two Sadakos. There's an evil Sadako, a cursed Sadako, if you will, and the one we've been watching all along. It's almost like she has two parts to her. We've been watching the empathetic Sadako that if she kills you, it's a total accident. And then there's this Sadako that he's been hoarding in his house. And he tells you that he's been feeding her pills so she won't grow. So that explains why she's not fully grown like she is in this movie. And when she's eventually thrown in the well, okay, like very convenient. But I will say that this, as weird as this finale was with the two Sadakos, I can't say that I wasn't really entertained by it. I was like, damn, like that's pretty interesting, and in a lot of ways can be seen as poetic. I think, like, I'm sure there's a lot more creative people out there than me that could just see so much more in the two Sadakos. Because is it something that we should look in ourselves? Is there a good and a bad in ourselves? The old school devil and the angel on your right and left shoulder. Like, which one do you listen to? And here's this movie where we've been watching the angel, so to speak, this entire movie, and then we learn that there is also a devil side to this girl, and the two sort of merge together. And part of me doesn't like it, but part of me also thinks that's pretty cool. Like, I think that's a really interesting way to take this. And I thought while watching it, I was like, I didn't know how to take it in. I didn't know how to digest it. I was kind of laughing and at the same time kind of trying to figure it out. And at the same time, kind of horrified, like all those things at once, which it's hard to do. Not a lot of movies can do and make you feel all those things at once. But Ringu Zero does make me feel that way, and I think that that's saying a lot personally to make me feel all those emotions. And I liked there's this scene where after Sadako merges with the good and evil side of herself, she's standing in front of this water and the trees and the wind's blowing, and her boyfriend, he comes up to her and, oh, Sadako, and she turns, and it's just a wonderful shot of her over the water, just amazing shot. And he's like, we can be together now, we can, there's no problems, there's no them, it's just you and me. And she smiles and walks towards him, but I think it's the absolute knowledge that all of what he's saying is just a fucking pipe dream. And that's pretty horrific in itself. And she kills him, right? Then we have the whole thing where the well scene, the father bludgeons her, throws her down the well, which it's really brutally done, really really well done filmmaking scene to see that happen. And they flash back to this kind of scene where they're both in the hospital together, and she's looking at her boyfriend. She's like, oh my God, like, it was all a dream. Maybe it was just all a dream. And she goes to touch him, and she feels the cold brick wall of the well she's just been thrown down. And she looks up as the father puts the cover on. It's almost like we could have had this life, me and my boyfriend. Like, we could have had all these great things and lived happily ever after, and drove off into the proverbial sunset. We could have had it, but it's the people that were around us that were horrified of the things I was capable of. It's the people around us that didn't know how to distinguish the good from the bad, because Sadako didn't know that herself. She didn't know the good from the bad. And in the end, it all merges together. It kind of all crumbles and culminates together as her life kind of crashes down. Really interesting, really deep, considering where the last two films, especially where Rasen went, really deep. And I thought, how brilliant is that? Like, I've not seen too many movies go that route. Where again, we've seen the carry elements before. We've seen empathetic horror. A perfect one would be May in the movie May, Angela Bettis. I mean, that's an empathetic. You feel sympathetic for her character, and you wonder what if Adam would have just given her a little bit more of a chance, a leeway to catch up to where he was. Maybe they could have had been a thing, but no, he wasn't patient enough and ultimately causes his demise. I don't know. I think there's a part of me that really, really appreciates that they went there with this. And I think that for what it's worth, it was a different kind of take on a Ringu film. And I thought it was the best possible direction they could go. after the two sequels that had just come out in 98 and 99 respectively, is to take a step back. And even though in a lot of ways you could have fucked this up, they really could have fucked this up and completely demystified why Sadako works as a great horror villain. But making me feel empathy and making me see that maybe what we've seen this whole time was the bad side. And in this film, we do see that there is a good side to everybody. I think that's so relatable. There is a good and bad side to everybody. And no matter how nice you are, no matter how mean you are, I bet the meanest person in the world, they still have a nice side. I think the nicest persons in the world, they still have their days where they're fucking mean. I think that's kind of what they were going for here. It's kind of what they were shooting for. And it can be messy, considered messy. I can understand that. Somebody could think that, and somebody could think, oh, I call bullshit on that. I like Sadako as the monster. And part of me does. Part of me doesn't want to know all this. Doesn't want to know she was in a drama class. Doesn't want to know what her face looked like. Doesn't want to know how beautiful she was. Because this actress is beautiful that plays her. But at the same time, if you're going to do this, it was done right. It really wasn't poorly done, if you will. I think a film like Rasen really more so demystifies why Sadako works. Making Sadako like sex crazed and wants vengeance, that's bullshit to me. This is, I see it kind of as, and this is just my interpretation. I could be completely wrong. My interpretation of the tape, because they never explain in this film or how the tape came, like who filmed this, It's almost like, to me, I look at it as she willed it into existence. And it's a videotape symbolizing her, not just her fear, but her tragedies and her sorrow. It's all embodied on that tape. And if you watch that, you shouldn't move on from that. That was my life you just watched. That was the tragedy that was my life. And you got a week left, pal. Enjoy it. That's how I see it. I could be completely wrong. And if I am, feel free to comment. Just please be kind, obviously. But that's kind of the thing I always liked about this. I liked that it kind of keeps an open mind. All four of these films, you can kind of think what you will and put yourself in these situations, no matter whether you like them or not. Even though I don't think Rasen, aka Spiral, is a great film, and by any means, I didn't even give it the pass or the average rating. I do think it's a watchable movie because it just does make you think. And it is an interesting take on the psychology of this story. Same with Ringu, too. I don't know if it's a great movie, but it's watchable. Whereas this, I really do think this is a great movie. And it does kind of bring up some questions and themes that I liked to think about. This was one of those shows where, because I wasn't as familiar with Spiral and Ringu Zero, it was really fun because I thought more psychology wise, and I thought more, this is really cool because there is no definitive answer to me. There is no definitive answer, and it jumps around so much that you can think 100 different ways and come up with 100 different outcomes, and that's fun. I have fun doing stuff like that. But we have comments here. Ringu Zero is a good horror prequel. Those are hard to find these days. I think the best horror prequel is Insidious Chapter 3. That's a great, I like that way more than I like Insidious Chapter 2. And that's funny because Insidious Chapter 2 is one of those sequels that just explains everything. Oh, that ghost that scared you in the first movie? Oh, that was Patrick Wilson's mother's patient who was secretly a man dressed in drag and liked to torture people. I didn't have to know that. They went the sleepaway camp route. Oh, he was like, what? Like, completely demystified why that character in Insidious 1 was scary to me. Insidious Chapter 3, no, let's take a step back. Let's fucking see. You know what's crazy about the Insidious films? We've never seen the follow-up to the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 and The Last Key are both prequels. Nobody after Chapter 2 ending went, okay, how do we continue the story? Because you can't. It's all been so over-explained that I think it really hurt the Insidious movies as a whole. And I think it's really hard to do an Insidious movie without Lynn Shay, because she's the heart and soul of those series. And I know a lot of people argue it's Patrick Wilson, it's Rose Byrne. I like those two actors, especially Patrick Wilson in films like Hard Candy. I think he's a really underrated talent and a diehard horror fan. I know he's a huge Dream Warriors guy. But Lynn Shay is why those movies work to me. And I would leave it at 4. I wouldn't make another one. I really wouldn't. But I believe 4 is the highest grossing of all 4. So you're definitely going to get another one. But that's a good point. And I like Insidious Chapter 3. And Ringu Zero is very similar in a lot of ways because it takes what the previous sequels, in Rasen and Ringu 2, which I know one is retconned, the other is considered canon, but it takes what those films did wrong and writes the plot while still having some creepy atmosphere. Not as good, but still definitely in the ballpark. An evil filmmaker I didn't know Junebug Films was in this movie. I'm just joking about. Is Ringu Zero a masterpiece? Ringu Zero is a great movie in general. I mean, I would just say that. The Carrie remake stinks. I hate the Carrie remake. I'm assuming you're talking about the 2013 one. I love the Angela Bettis one. That's like one remake I really love just because I love Angela Bettis. And I think she's just a fucking one of the best actresses of all time. I love Angela Bettis, man. Most evil people don't think they're evil. Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of psychology of Sadako with that. Like she doesn't the good part of her doesn't believe in the bad part of her. And then when the two merge together, it's almost like she accepts it. But I just had a fucking ant on me. Oh shit. I got a fucking ant on my arm, man. That's resting pepperoni instead of ant. But like I was saying, when the two merge, it's like she accepts it, but the good part of her still wants to be with the boyfriend. I thought that was really, really smart, man. Why did she kill her boyfriend exactly? Well, what happened was he wanted to live with her and he wanted the good side of her. And when the two, the evil and the good merged, I think the evil side of her killed him. I think the good side of her never could have done that. And I think that's to show that the bad side, that all these crazy people that bludgeoned the good side to death brought out the bad side. That's how I see it. But again, Devin, I could be wrong. I really could. I don't know if that's definitive. But that's how I saw it personally, and I thought it was good. And if you want to watch for yourself, this is a free on YouTube. Ringu Zero and the original Ring are free on YouTube, and Rasen and Ring 2 are on Tubi. You can watch all these movies for free if you do not want to spend the bread on the Blu-rays. Like I'm not spending the bread on the Blu-rays. That's crazy. $160. That's crazy. Insidious Chapter 2 sucked. It has some cool sequences, but is not enough to make a good sequel. Exactly. I would say that's a sequel that, again, had good scare sequences because you got James Wan back. Like Ringu 2. It's funny how fucking similar Insidious 1, 2, and 3 and Ringu, Ring 2, and fucking Ringu 0 are to each other. It's almost the exact same order and reasons why each other work, even though, weirdly enough, James Wan was replaced in the third one, just like Hideo Nakata was replaced in Ringu 0. It's a very similar situation. But I agree, again, the second film is the weakest of when we're talking about those three, in my humble opinion. Angela Bettis is a great actress. She is great in Toby Hooper's Toolbox Murders remake and May. Yes, no, her performance in May is one of my favorite all-time horror movie performances. I loved her as Carrie White. I loved her in The Woman. I think she's just such an underrated talent. Sick Girl. Just love Angela Bettis, man. I think she's just a once in a lifetime talent for me personally. But I know a lot of people would probably be like, "Oh, who the hell is that?" Watch some Angela Bettis films. You'll thank me later for sure. But if I had to rate Ringu Zero, wow, this is interesting. I'm going to come with a solid 8 out of 10 for Ringu Zero. I really don't have too much negatives. It can be a little bit messy at times when it comes to the story, and the look of the film looks a lot cheaper. Like I was saying, it does look like a made-for-TV film at times, like a made-for-PBS film, if I could be even more like specific. I swear to you, it does. Like, you know what I mean if you've seen the film. But I enjoy this. I enjoy this movie. It's probably my second favorite of the series. So if I had to rank these, we go Ringu, then Ringu Zero, Ringu 2, and then Spiral. But those two are very close. Both second films, whether you retcon one or the other, very close in my opinion. And crazy enough, that's not really where this series ends because, of course, in America, we had The Ring, the remake with Naomi Watts, directed by Gore Verbinski, I think a good remake. The Ring 2, which they brought in Hideo Nakata for, all the way from Japan. Everyone hates that one. I gotta be honest, I've only seen it once, and I barely remember it, so I can't say what I think of The Ring 2. And then Rings in America. So there's an American trilogy where I've not seen the third film, and I've only seen the second film once. So those two are definitely worth a revisit. for me. I'm going to have to give it a watch. And maybe one of these days I'll do the American movies. But that wasn't just it for the Japanese ones. Of course, you have Sadako 3D, which is in some ways a direct sequel to Rasen. So that's the timeline they went with there. Like, oh, we'll branch off Rasen. Sadako 3D 2, and then of course Sadako versus Kayako from fucking The Grudge. You had the Ring Girl versus the Grudge Girl in a fucking epic clash. That's a fun movie. I really had fun with that. I've not seen Sadako 3D and Sadako 3D, so we're not going to talk about them. I have not seen them, but man, somewhere down the road, I would like to watch those, and then maybe give a rewatch to Sadako versus Kayako. Maybe do an American Ring trilogy, and then Sadako 3D, 3D2, and then of course Sadako versus Kayako. That would be a fun way to mix and match this. And it would be fun to talk more J horror, because I really like talking about Japanese horror, and there's so many. I really love House from 1977. That's a great Japanese horror film. I really love Dark Water. I really love Ju-on the Grudge. That would be a fun one to do an episode on. Ju-on and Ju-on the Grudge 2. That would be a really, really fun episode of Grande's Graveyard, because those are some of the scariest films ever, in my opinion. Of course, Three Extremes, which I know has Hong Kong and Korean filmmakers also involved, but of course, Takashi Miike. He's probably my favorite Japanese filmmaker out there. But it was fun taking this road down Japanese horror lane. And this was a really, really fun watch. Like, I just had a fun week show prepping for this. This was a really fun episode to do, and I appreciate everybody for watching. For the franchise, 6 out of 10. That's fair, totally fair. Because you have the two in the middle are very average. Like, there's really, so one is a 4.5, one's a 5.5. So together they get a 10 out of 20. Those two, the two in the middle, are very average movies to me. They both have pros and cons. But if you watch Ringu and Ringu Zero, or even watch Ringu Zero first because it's the prequel, then watched Ringu, I feel like that'd be a great double feature, personally. Leigh Whannell is a talented filmmaker right at the moment. Insidious Chapter 3, Upgrade, The Invisible Man. I love the way he directs his films. Yeah, and I remember when Insidious 3 came out, a lot of people were like, this is not going to be as good. He's no Wan. He's no Wan. And I agree. He's not James Wan. James Wan is, it's in my opinion, currently the best horror filmmaker alive today. Like, he is so good at filmmaking. He's just great. But Leigh Whannell brought a lot to the table with Insidious Chapter 3, and I think he opened up a lot of eyes. I think a lot of people expected Insidious Chapter 3 to be a piece of shit. And when it wasn't, I think people were like begrudgingly gave him respect. And then Upgrade really seemed like a lot of people loved Upgrade. And then The Invisible Man was a huge box office hit right before COVID kind of took over and shit on all our lives. So I can't wait to see what Leigh Whannell does next. I think he's a really talented guy. I like Leigh Whannell a lot. John, you're going to watch Rings. Good luck, man. I couldn't even finish it. I watched the trailer and got pissed, so I don't know about Rings. But after watching what I watched for this, like Spiral, Ring 2, I mean, I'm down just to fucking see where they go with it. But I'm sure it'll be a piece of shit, man. Rings, I heard nothing, and it was delayed for 2 years. They did mad reshoots. I don't know, man. Rings is going to be rough, but that'll be down the road. I'm not looking to do the Ring again next week or anytime soon. I'll try to, over time, maybe rewatch Gore Verbinski's remake and then go from there. Watch the Ring 2 and then Rings maybe, and then I'd love to watch the Sadako 3D and stuff like that. So we'll get there eventually. But wow, I did not think this was going to go over 2 hours. So I apologize for the length of this, but I don't know. I enjoy talking psychology and horror, and always a great time on the Graveyard. So I guess we can wrap the show here. Next week, I don't know. I've been wanting to do the top 10 most influential women in horror. I feel like that'd be a really, really fun show to do. But again, it's such a hard list to make because you're going to leave somebody off and you're going to piss somebody off. So part of me wants to do that, but part of me, it's such a hard task to do. So I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm trying to do that eventually, but I don't know if that will be next week or even down the road. Hopefully it's down the road somewhere. But that's going to be all for the Graveyard tonight. I thank you everybody for watching. This was a really, really fun show. Long live Sadako. My gal, my girl, on a cloudy day when it's cold outside. I got the month of May. I love me some Sadako, man. Sadako is bad, especially the actress Yuki Nakama. Oh my God, man, top shelf woman right there. That is an 11 out of 10, man. That is a good looking woman. Long live Sadako, long live Ringu, ladies and gents. So we will catch you next time, next week. Thank you all for joining. Have a very happy, safe weekend. And we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard.